welcome to Let's Talk AppSec. My name is Mark Lambert, VP of Products at ArmorCode, and I'm joined by 𝗙cie𝗹𝗹liche. Hey, how are we doing, Guzman?
I am doing excellent. Thank you, sir. How are you?
So, we have these chats all the time, and you brought an interesting topic up the other day, which I think resonates a lot with almost everybody that we talk to. But let's talk about it. So, software releases, emergency changes, CI/CD pipelines. Like, how's that driving things these days?
Oh, well, I mean, the whole cycle of how quickly we're turning around and shipping things out, right? Back in the day, you and I remember the Microsoft Tuesday releases. Everything was Tuesday or Thursday, right? They used to have two cadences, and then they cut it down to just Tuesday. But now it just seems like we're pushing things out almost on a weekly basis, right? So we've moved from a model of, the waterfall, let's do service packs like you were talking about before, to we've got prospects telling us that they're releasing every few hours.
Yeah.
Right. So that's huge. So how are you going to keep up with that?
Yeah. And we at ArmorCode release every week, right? So, our Thursday's our push day, right?
Mm-hmm.
And, there's really a couple of key advantages to doing this. We'll transition in a minute to talk about the challenges, but one of the key advantages from my perspective is obviously delivery to market. You can deliver functionality quicker. You can show, for me, the whole goal of Agile isn't release fast, it's actually be more accurate. So it's incremental releases towards the target. Mm-hmm. But the really good thing we get from a security perspective, if you have a well-oiled machine, is that when you get like a log4j or something that's like out in the wild, we can react quickly. We can prioritize it. We put it on the current release pipeline and we can get it out much, much quicker. Certainly the recent State of AppSecOps research that we did with Purplebuck is that we saw that leaders, those that didn't release any critical vulnerabilities in production or never released or rarely released highs, their release cadence was 1 week to 2 weeks. And most of them actually been about 2 weeks. None of them were actually releasing faster than that. And I think that's kind of like giving you that sweet spot for kind of like release cadence. So you can kind of balance delivery of functionality with making sure your applications are secure as well. So we know that the market's pushing us that way. We have to react quickly. As you're talking to clients, how are you talking to them about how they can really streamline that process?
Well, I mean, thinking about their different teams, right? Because usually there's different stakeholders and their timing is a little bit different than the other stakeholder. So being able to have a cohesiveness on there's a standardized workflow, everybody understands what part and piece they play. Being able to have a platform that's going to facilitate that is huge. And currently in the market, there's parts and pieces that you can grab from different areas, but there isn't a platform like ArmorCode right now that's actually putting it all together and being able to say, look, this is where we need this stakeholder to be involved, and we've got the right ticketing system for them and the right workflow so that they understand what their part is. So even on the CI/CD pipeline, understanding that you have a release gate, understanding that goes to an SLA, who created that SLA, is that a business thing, is that a organization, business unit thing, depending on all of those little parts to be able to release it quickly. And the con, right, of being able to do it that fast is making sure that everybody's talking and everybody's communicating. And for the most part, they're not. That's why I keep getting those conversations of, hey, Luis, we want to talk about how we're releasing software. Great.
Yeah. You touched on a bunch of stuff there. So let me kind of like unpack a little bit, right? So we've got multiple things that we need together in one platform, which obviously is what we do at ArmorCode, right? But you've got the service level agreements, and the challenge that we're embedding all these tools into the pipeline, generating a lot of data. But if I'm having to go to look at each of the tools individually and figure out what my service level agreements are within each of them, correlating the information, across not just pipeline tools, but also infrastructure tools, it's slowed down the whole process. And when you get a critical vulnerability, so I'm coming at this from the point of view of, hey, when a zero-day event happens, or how do I get that in and get that prioritized? You have to have everybody on the same page. Mm-hmm. You have to be integrating into Jira. You have to have Slack notifications. You have to have service level agreements and automation around the service level agreements and automation around the ticketing, so that you can react quickly, basically, is right. Kind of like the way I think about it. When you talk to folks about kind of like the impediments to that, what do you see as the main impediments? You mentioned kind of like communication and like developer friction between security and development teams is kind of like the thing that I hear a little bit. We talked about that in a previous chat with security champions. What do you see as kind of like the top 3 things that organizations struggle with when they're trying to accelerate their releases?
So there's lack of a cohesion, right? And that usually means that they can't communicate on the same language, really. So being able to understand that the right audience needs to have the right information to go do the following steps to remediate and make sure that everybody's still, if you're a burger chain, that you're still cooking burgers, right? So ultimately, if it breaks the business continuity, then we need to figure out how to not break it, how to actually assimilate into their workflow. And so having that actual communication where everybody understands, because you could have communication, but if the other side doesn't understand, who cares, right? You're just talking in the wind. And so being able to understand that with a platform like ArmorCode, we're able to now bring in the communication in the way that those individuals really need. So for example, the DevOps side, right? We talked about that before. A lot of developers never get out of Jira. So why would they want to go into ArmorCode? Well, they don't. Right? They stay in Jira, and we can stay in ArmorCode as a security engineer and still have communication back and forth. Huge game changer.
Yeah, and it's putting that context around it, right? So I think the SLAs are key for me on this because the SLA and codifying that. So we agree from an organizational perspective, this is the way we should respond to things based on severity levels that are normalized across the different tools. But use that to drive the team and unifying that across different tools, different security tools, different data points, leveraging communication frameworks like, as you said, like Jira. It's like, as a developer, I want to be in Jira. I'm not moving back and forth. So give me the severity level in Jira, give me the due date in Jira. Let me provide exception workflows, appropriately triggered through the Jira interface. Those are all of the things that you need to be able to streamline that communication process. And that SLA, really in my mind is always split into 2 pieces as well. Your first piece is triage, and that's what we're doing from a security team perspective, and then you've got remediation, what the developers are doing. And the time that it takes to resolve those 2 things together is kind of like what is the overarching part of the SLA. So if we can automate the first the triage, like highlight things much quicker, cross-correlate things much quicker, even fully automate in situations where I've got critical, let's say it's a CVSS, you got the base score of a 9.8. Hey, yes, I want to notify the security team, but I don't want to wait if I know that that's coming from somewhere. It's like that needs to be pushed straight to the development team to be remediated. And then likewise, the development team need the context, right? This is where our adaptive knowledge base comes in, right? So it's like, hey, this is related to a cross-site scripting issue. So let's talk about how we can fix a cross-site scripting issue and who else can help me in the organization and adapting that knowledge base to how the organization works.
And it's happening like this, right?
The only way. It's the only way.
Right.
All right. We're about 5 minutes again, but we just go really, really quick. So thank you very much for joining us. Stay tuned. We'll have another one of these Let's Talk AppSecs coming up soon.